This story is set back in the early 2000s. It was about a pair of relatives that lived in Fresno. You might have already heard the story. The author decided to name the two people Lore 1 and Lore 2. That's just too complicated. I'm just gonna call one Lo and I'm gonna call the other one Tua, alright? It was early fall. Lo and Tua decided to go hunting for squirrels. They parked at a small open field, which was the beginning of a dirt path that led up to the woods ahead. This path was to lead hunters that got lost in the woods back to the open field, which was next to the main road that would lead back to the highway. Oh, that was a long sentence. Upon arrival, it was early afternoon and a warm day. Both cousins decided to depart ways and see who could get the most squirrels, and then meet back at the car within the next couple of hours for lunch. They were already much older in age and already married with kids. Tua wasn't having any luck with squirrels, so he decided to go back early in time for lunch. He waited and waited for many hours, but Lo hadn't returned. Tua already ate lunch and decided not to wait for his cousin. It was only a couple of more hours until the sun will soon set. Tua got worried, but he still waited, thinking that his cousin was getting lucky on squirrels. Perhaps this was why he didn't return. Tua started to doze off, standing by the car, waiting for his cousin Lo. He then heard someone calling his name. Looking up ahead to the path that led into the woods, he saw someone who was calling his name. What he saw freaked him out. Up ahead, it seemed to be a lady with long, curly hair, dressed in black, walking towards him. Tua was shocked and grabbed his gun quickly and shot at the lady that was up ahead, about 30 feet away. After blinking his eyes, Tua examined the body that he shot that had fell to the ground and realized that it was Lo, his cousin. Now, Tua was really afraid and did not know what to do. He just shot his cousin. He then drove off to a park ranger station, and from there an ambulance had to come to take Lo's body to the hospital. Unfortunately, Lo was already dead on the way to the hospital from losing too much blood. His family was then notified a few hours later. Relatives and Lo's family came to the hospital that night. Lo was handcuffed and sitting inside a police car outside the hospital by one officer. Some of the elders stayed behind to ask him what happened. The officer had cuffed Tua for refusing to tell the officer what happened. The officer then asked if the elders could talk to him and see if he would tell them anything. This was when he revealed to the elders what happened at the site. They all spoke in Hmong and made up a story about how the shooting was an accident. Tua was then locked up days later. A few days before Lo's funeral, a shaman was asked to come and do a ritual to get the truth. Although Lo was dead, his spirit was nowhere to be found. The shaman had gone to the other world in search of his spirit. The shaman then came upon the lady in black. Lo's spirit was with her. An agreement was made, and the shaman was able to make peace with Lo's spirit and the lady. Coming back, the shaman had told Lo's family about what happened, and why the lady did what she had done to him. When Lo separated from Tua, he came upon a bat during his hunt and shot the bat dead. The bat happened to be the lady's son posing as a bat to find food. Finding out that Lo killed her son, she locked Lo in a spell so that he couldn't get out of the woods. He got lost and couldn't find his way back for a few hours. He then prayed to his ancestors and the guardian of the woods. Eventually, this helped him get out of the woods and get back onto the path that would lead him back to Tua. The lady got angry and furious that Lo could meet up with his cousin. She then disguised Lo to look like her in front of Tua. This is what triggered his cousin to kill Lo, and it worked. The author states that this story is true, so if you go hunting, be careful, and remember your firearm safety test. I remembered reading a story here about Lore and Lore's 2 hunting story, so I would like to share one that happened in Fresno, California. It started off during the weekdays that the uncle would call the nephew if he was available to go squirrel hunting that weekend. The nephew told him yes. Then he informed his parents that his uncle was going to take him out hunting for the first time in 5 years. The day finally came. The uncle and nephew reached their secret spot a bit early, around 4 a.m. when it was still dark. The uncle told the nephew that he was going to sleep because it was still too early, so they decided to both sleep inside of the car. Then the uncle had a strange dream. He dreamt of seeing a group of Hmong or Mien people surrounding his truck and knocking on his window. In his dream, they were talking and arguing. Before he almost woke up, the uncle remembered one of the Hmong or Mien leaders saying, "We're going to take him away regardless of if he will come with us." Then the uncle woke up. It was 6 a.m. He didn't say anything, but wished for a good hunt only. The uncle then woke up his nephew and told him to gear up and to plan where they were going. They both hunted for a while. It was around 11 a.m. The nephew decided to wander into other areas searching for squirrels. The uncle said that he saw a squirrel running back and forth, so he took a shot with his 12-gauge shotgun. Happy that he got something, he went to check it out. Only it was his nephew laying on the ground. The side of his head was blown out from the shotgun shell. The uncle was so scared and drove back to the street to get cell phone reception and called the cops. The nephew was dead. The hardest part was that the nephew's dad didn't know what to do because it was his own brother that shot his son. The mom wanted the uncle to serve jail time, but the father didn't want to bring shame to the family. The uncle slept the next day and dreamt about these Hmong Mien leaders saying, "We got him, and now he's our slave. I have told all my hunting partners that if any of us has a bad dream, please let everyone know because I'd rather cancel a hunting trip than lose my friend." One day, my dad went hunting with some of my uncles for squirrels somewhere in California. They stopped at their usual spot and discussed to decide who should partner up with who. They then split up and each pair headed their own separate ways. That time, they decided to camp at night and hunt again in the morning so each pair doesn't have to hurry back when it gets dark. That way, they could take their time if they wanted to, so my dad and one of the uncles took a spot near the creek. My uncle said to my dad that he should watch the spot while my uncle goes across the creek and watches the other side, so my dad did as my uncle suggested. Nighttime was approaching and the sun was starting to go down. By that time, my dad has not seen any single squirrels and he was getting very tired. He remembered that he was in the state of almost going to sleep, but he is still awake because he could still hear birds singing in the distance and the running water from the creek. Then, all of a sudden, he felt the ground shaking. It felt like something huge was coming towards my dad. He felt as though something was going to come out of nowhere and might eat him. The sound of the footstep sounded like a loud thump, thump. My dad remembers that his gun was next to him, so he grabbed it quickly and got ready to shoot. Just as he got into that position, ahead of him, he sees the trees get knocked down one after another. Something big was heading his way, and really fast. My dad started to sweat, and just as he wiped away his sweat with one of his hands, the monster finally showed itself to him. My dad described it as this giant Bigfoot-like creature with huge white fangs and a pair of glowing red eyes. The thing was drooling, hungry, and ready to eat my dad, so he pointed his gun at the monster's head and fired. To my dad's surprise, the gun didn't fire. He thought that maybe he forgot to turn the safety off, or perhaps his gun jammed. He checked really quickly. Nothing was wrong with his gun. He fired again. Nothing. The monster starts to run towards my dad. He readies his gun, ready to hit it with the butt as the monster was within reach, but the monster ran faster than he thought and he couldn't swing in time. It grabbed both of my dad's arms and pinned him down to the ground. My dad thought that this was really it and screamed really loud for help. Then the monster slapped my dad really hard and he woke up. When he woke up from his dream, my uncle pinned both of my dad's arms to the tree behind him. My uncle asked him, "What's wrong? You almost tried to shoot me with your gun. If I didn't go for your hands first and hold them tightly, you would have killed me." My dad said, In my dreams, you were a giant monster trying to eat me, and I got really scared, so I grabbed my gun and was trying to kill the monster before he ate me." After that, they hurried back to camp. At camp, my dad told them what happened. Everyone decided to pack up and go home for the rest of the day. They didn't camp for that night. My dad likes to go hunting in his spare time. He usually goes hunting overnight. One time, my dad went hunting and brought back a spirit. On nights that my dad was gone, my mom would feel someone getting into bed and sleeping beside her. She started then to sleep out in the living room when my dad was hunting overnight. My sister would sleep out in the living room too, so that my mom wouldn't feel so uneasy. One morning, my mom said that my dad woke her up to help him pack lunch and help him put his hunting stuff into the car. She didn't get right up at that moment, but when she finally did get up, she said that my dad was already gone. When my dad got home, she said why was he such in a hurry to leave that morning? He told her that he didn't come home at all that morning because he was still out hunting. My parents owned chicken coops. One morning, my mom woke up to go to the chicken coop. After my mom had left, my sister started to wake up. She saw my dad putting on his socks. She asked him if he was going to go to the chicken coop to help my mom, and he said yes, so my sister just went back to bed. When my mom got back, my sister asked my mom where my dad was, and she told her that my dad was still hunting and hasn't come back home yet. My sister told my mom that she swore she saw him leave to go to the chicken coop to help her, but my mom said that he wasn't going to be home until later that afternoon. My dad started to have nightmares about getting dragged by his neck and getting hung onto a tree. Soon, my dad started to get really sick, so we did jingle bells for my dad. It turns out, it was his spirit that was getting dragged and hung onto the tree. They also had to erase my dad's trail from the time when he went hunting because that was how he brought the ghost back home with him. The feeling that my mom had when she felt like someone was getting into the bed with her was the ghost. My quote-unquote dad that my sister saw was the spirit disguised as my dad. I remember when they did oneng for my dad, there was a dollhouse with a doll in it to lock the ghost spirit inside of it. This story happened to me in Fresno, California. As a Hmong American, I never actually believed what my parents told me about not to yell or say stupid stuff out in the wilderness. In 2006, my buddies and I went on a long hunting trip and we were driving back home. We decided to take Albury Road from Table Mountain Casino, driving back to Clovis. It was dark and the time would be around 11 p.m. I was sitting in the passenger seat and two buddies in the back. We were all drinking inside the car, but not the driver. My friend that was driving spotted something and told me to keep it low and don't do anything stupid because my windows were rolled down. I didn't listen to him, and so I peeked out the window and yelled out profanities of all sort, acting like I was tough. When we all arrived home safely, I took a shower and went to sleep. That night, I was continuously having nightmares about seeing two Native Americans, a woman and a man, following me and trying to block my path. The next day, I drove back to San Jose, California, and weird things started to happen. As I was driving, a hawk hit my front bumper of my BMW and left a feather and a scratch mark. Then I arrived back at my apartment and opened the front door. I was suddenly hit with a strong odor of burnt wood in the living room next to my bedroom. I asked my roommate and he told me that there was nothing. I tried to investigate where the odor was coming from, but couldn't find it. That night, I went to sleep and was continuously having nightmares again, seeing two Native Americans grabbing my leg and hand. I was screaming and fighting with them in my dreams. Every time I woke up and fell back to sleep, my dream would continue from where I woke up. I woke up 13 times that night, and I could still feel the hand marks on my leg and wrist from the dream. The drum and Native American chanting was whispering into my ears. This terrified me deeply, and so I called my mom at 3 a.m. in the morning. My mom did some ritual things at home and called me to say, "Did you yell out or wanted to challenge something?" And I replied, "Yes." My mom did more stuff and told me to grab a knife and did some things to protect myself while I was away from my parents. That night, I was able to sleep better without nightmares, and I saw a vision of my ancestors in Hmong clothes dragging me back to my parents' house. That's why you don't act tough, man. I will not disclose the location or any real names because just writing about this event gives me the chills. I definitely don't want a visit from these people. I know multiple people who have shared this story, and mentioning the real names then got a visit from them in the most scariest of ways. This is a long story. About 4 years ago, Mai's older brother Yi and two of his friends, Thu and Meng, went hunting on Thu's land. The three friends split up and went in different directions. A little while afterwards, there was a gunshot, followed by faint screaming. Both friends ran towards the direction of the gunshot, thinking their friend Yi got a big one. When they arrived at the location, they didn't see their friend Yi. Instead, they saw Thu's dad standing there, pale as a ghost, screaming for help. They ran over and saw that Yi had been shot and was bleeding on the ground. Thu took off running towards their house to get a phone or service signal. It took the ambulance 45 minutes to get to their location. Yi, unfortunately, did not make it to the hospital due to where the bullet was located. Thu's dad swore he saw a deer and was aiming at the deer. He shot his gun and walked towards the deer dropped. Once he got to the location, he didn't see the deer. Instead, he saw his son's friend. The police did an investigation and found the father innocent and ruled it as accidental shooting. No charges were pressed. Thu's family did pay for some of the funeral costs. After the incident with Yi, his family moved out of the state. They left behind their newly built house to their daughter, Mai, and her little family. 2 years later, Mai lived in the house with her husband and 3 children. All of her children were under the age of 3. It all started with bad and scary reoccurring dreams about people calling for her and showing themselves in the scary forms of banzongs. She told her husband about them. He told her to brush it off. He was young himself and didn't want to put too much attention to it, thinking they were just dreams. They are both still shaman, but not hardcore religious. Then, these entities started to show themselves to Mai. At times, they would look like normal people walking around her house. Other times, they looked really scary, like banzong. She told her husband once again, and this time, he told his parents. Unfortunately, his parents didn't really like Mai because they wanted their son to marry someone else. The husband's parents said that they will seek help when they have time. So, with this, her husband asked a shaman to tie red strings around Mai. It helped for a little bit, but not for too long. They also had a hoopli for Mai, but that also didn't seem to help because she was still seeing and hearing things. 2 months went by. By this time, Mai started to feel like she was going crazy. They scared her and her children, especially her infant and her 2-year-old. Her kids would wake up from night terrors every time they fell asleep. Her infant was always crying for no reason. Mai started to lose weight due to not having any appetite, and bags started to form under her eyes because she wasn't able to sleep much. she started to look really unhealthy. Mai would then start to talk to herself or talk to the people she saw around her. She would laugh and start saying crazy things to her husband and friends. She would then point out the people she sees and describe them to her husband and friends who went over to be there for her. It got very uncomfortable and scary at times. Her husband told her parents everything and requested for them to come and stay with Mai for a few weeks to make sure that she was okay and help out with the kids until she got better. Her mother was worried and came to stay with her. Before she came, she went to seek spiritual help from a few shamans. All the shamans that she spoke to told her that they needed to uneng for their daughter quickly because something was taking her spirit farther and farther away from her body. Mai's mother told the in-laws this when she arrived. They assured her that they would find a shaman and perform the rituals as soon as they could, quote-unquote. While Mai's poor mother was staying with her, she kept hearing Mai speak to a person she called a Yi. She asked her daughter who she kept talking to. Mai then told her that she was talking to her brother. She said that her brother has been visiting her frequently because he knows that the other people scare her. He told her that he was there for her and for her not to be scared of him. Her mother stayed with her for a month, then went back to do some errands and was planning on coming back to take her daughter with her to get some help. Who writes these long-winded sentences? Anyways, while her mother was away, Mai started to have dreams of animals coming to the house. Before they leave, they would go and gnaw on Mai's head. Mai woke up from the dreams with terror. She went to the bathroom to wash up and noticed that she was getting a bald spot where the animals were gnawing on her head. She showed her husband, his family, and her friends. Mai was scared for her life at this point. She called her mother and cried her heart out, saying that she was too young to die. Her kids needed a mother, and she was ready to not go yet. Her mother made plans with her to go up to her family. They were going to seek a very powerful shaman that would be able to help her. Mai must have known she wouldn't make it up there because she told her mom it was going to be too late. She said her goodbyes to her mother that night and asked her mother to love and help take care of her kids. Her mother told her to stop talking nonsense. That was their last conversation. A week later, Mai got into a car accident and died. A truck had hit her from behind and threw her body out of the car. She died due to head trauma. She came in a dream to her husband and told him that they came for her. She fought them off and she won, but by the time she broke away and got back to where her body was, it was gone. That's tragic. May she rest in peace.